on Nostalgic Movie Review from Nerdy Married Man.
Welcome back to New and Nostalgic, everyone.
We're just going to keep saying the name of our podcast. New and Nostalgic.
It's new.
And nostalgic.
This week we are doing our first special episode. It is a video game review episode, and the first video game movie we are doing...
Need for Speed.
Yes, that movie came out in 2014. It is PG-13, and it clocks in at 2 hours and 12 minutes.
I'm going to say a quote from a different movie, but I feel the need
for speed.
Yes, this is starring Aaron Paul, which a lot of you know from Breaking Bad.
Jesse Pinkman.
This is also starring Kid Cudi, which love that Kid Cudi's in this movie. Kid Cudi's actually a really decent actor. I love a lot of the things he's in. He was recently in the movie X. He is also a singer-songwriter that a lot of people know. He did the song like Day and Night, Memories, and a lot of these other things.
Yeah, and some of the other cast in this, there's Dominic Cooper. He plays a character named Dino. And he actually, the other movie I saw him in I really liked was Abraham Lincoln Vampire Slayer.
Oh, yes.
Or Vampire Hunter. It's pretty fun. Some other notables, there's Dakota Johnson, Imogen Poots, and then Michael Keaton. You know, the great Michael Keaton. And then one other was Rami Malek. And
yes.
I really like him. He's done a lot of cool roles.
He was Queen in the movie Queen. He played Freddie Mercury.
He also does a role in The Legend of Korra as well.
And he's in one of my favorite video games of all time, Until Dawn.
Oh, that's awesome. Really cool.
Yeah. Imogen Poots, what can I say about her other than she is my British sweetheart? I love this woman to death. I love her in almost every movie she's in. I think she's in my top 10 list of most attractive. Like, she's a huge crush of mine.
And I actually just saw her in another movie recently that I did not know she was in. And that is she's in 28 Weeks Later.
Oh.
She
it's been
plays,
a long time since I've seen that one.
She plays one of the main character's daughter in that movie, and she's young. She's probably in her teens or something. But
okay.
I was like, holy crap! I just saw her in Need for Speed.
But yeah, Rotten Tomatoes score for this critic review is a 22%, and audience review for this is a 57.
So quite a spread. It's not super huge, but it's big enough to kind of make people question why such a gap.
Yeah. Do you want to read the synopsis for this one?
Yes, absolutely. Fresh from prison, a street racer who was framed by a wealthy business associate joins a cross-country race with revenge in mind. His ex-partner, learning of the plan, places a massive bounty on his head as the race begins.
Ooh. Yes. Story sounds a little cheesy.
It is.
It is a little cheesy, but that is what I wanted from this movie. I'm a huge Need for Speed fan. I don't know how big of a Need for Speed fan you are.
I've played a few of the Need for Speed games. I loved Need for Speed Underground, but I'm also a Gran Turismo player as well. But I don't play a lot of racing games. The one I play most is Mario Kart. So, but Need for Speed growing up, I played I played Need for Speed Underground 2, Most Wanted. And then on my computer, it was a Need for Speed Corvette game where it was only Corvettes. Yep. It was fun, but it's a fun franchise.
I have been playing this franchise since the very beginning. I have played pretty much every single Need for Speed game ever made. I only completed a lot of the earlier ones. I didn't complete a lot of the newer ones. The newer ones are too long for too long's sake, and the stories aren't as intriguing as some of the old ones were. This movie kind of pulls from 3 different games.
Which ones?
So this movie pulls from Need for Speed The Run, Need for Speed Hot Pursuit, and Need for Speed Carbon.
Okay, and I've played Hot Pursuit and Carbon very little, but that's really cool that they pulled from that.
Most Wanted and Carbon are actually my 2 favorites, and probably Pro Street after that.
I'd say hands down the best Need for Speed game for me was Need for Speed Underground 2. For some reason, it was just such a fun game. I loved all the NOS mechanics, and it was just so adrenaline filled.
That's what a lot of people's favorites one is.
Underground 2, baby. That's me.
For me, the story in Most Wanted and Carbon were way better. Carbon's got this revenge story in it which is what they pulled from that part of the game.
Oh, okay.
In Need for Speed: The Run, you're actually going from one end of the country to the other end of the country. It's a race. The entire game is one race.
Interesting.
And you're racing from one end to the other, and each segment you're doing little like chunks of each state at a time. Mm-hmm. And you only have to go up like 20. You have to pass 20 people before each checkpoint.
Wow.
So that's where this movie, they go throughout the entire country. So they have to do it within a day, which you have to do it within a day in the game.
Was it? Oh, was it? They had
48 hours. So it was supposed to be something around there.
I can't remember. I thought it was either 48 or they only had like 36 hours. I don't know.
I think at some point, like, there was 2 different time frames, because there's time frames to make it to the checkpoint and then time frame to make it to the other.
With that being said, the time frame is not important. The point is they're trying to race to get to a race.
Yes. Yes. But it is a cross-country thing, which they do in this movie, so I thought that's what they were pulling that. And then if you're Speed Hot Pursuit, we get the police stuff in the last race. Yeah. Which is
throughout
amazing.
The whole movie.
Well, we do get it throughout the entire movie, but especially we get to see like the pursuit breakers kind of happen, and we get to see the police and their like blockades and stuff that they do, like they did in the game, and they make it very video game-y in this movie.
Oh, it's definitely
like you would not. I couldn't actually see cops deciding to do this in real life.
Well, a lot of this would not happen in real life. It is so over the top and insane, and wow.
Other fun facts about this movie was actually made by EA and DreamWorks.
Oh, I didn't see the DreamWorks part. I saw EA, but
yeah, which DreamWorks Pictures has only ever made. This is their 3rd action movie they've made. They did a movie called Peacemaker in 1997, and then they did Minority Report in 2002.
Oh, Minority Report! What an amazing movie.
So these are the first 3 DreamWorks action movies. Steven Spielberg actually helped produce a lot of this, and this movie, contrary to what a lot of people would believe, is all practical effects. They built special vehicles that have special booms for their cameras. They actually like took the bodies of a lot of vehicles and built their own cars underneath to make them go at least 140 miles an hour so they could feel the speed.
Oh, and didn't they also like make the shells of the very like expensive sports cars to put on top of the cars they used for the movie, so they didn't actually have to use the expensive cars?
Exactly. Because they are crashing $1 million cars.
Yeah, and actually with that, with all the practical stunts, I thought it was really neat that, according to the director, Scott Waugh, was it Waugh?
Yeah, Scott Waugh.
Apparently all the cast that involved driving, they took stunt driving lessons, and apparently the main character, when Toby returns to a special incident of the movie that we'll talk about later, he does this thing where he drifts the car right up to the camera, and you see Aaron Paul's face through the door of the car. And Aaron Paul is actually really afraid to hit hitting the cameraman and hitting the camera. And apparently the director is like, no, try to hit me. Try to hit me. And so the last take they got where it comes right up and his face is in the camera through the window, he did that right before jumping out of the car.
I believe they did a similar scene in John Wick.
I think that's so crazy.
The exact same slide.
But apparently Aaron Paul was afraid to do it because he didn't want to hurt anyone.
Yeah.
And he's such a cool guy.
So like I said, everything in this movie, some of the things were filmed at half speed because some of the cars they had going 260, 270 miles an hour, which is possible for people who are non-believers. Everything was filmed at half speeds, but they did film up to 142 miles an hour.
That's insane. Which I don't know, like, I believe that, but at the same time, while watching the movie, some of the parts seem like they're going really fast, but it also feels like they're going so slow at times. And it says, like, on a lot of the cars, they have the cool dashboards where there's the regular speed indicator, but then there's a little shine up on the windshield where you can see the speed they're going. And there's a lot of times I see the speed jumping up and down so quickly, and I'm like, no way.
Those cars are that ridiculous.
Yeah, but in the movie itself, there's sometimes where I'm like, there's no way he was going that fast. Like, there's a scene where he is racing a car and he gets it to go up to 234 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And while he's rounding the bend going 234, Dino, Dominic Cooper's character, steps out in front of the car because he's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And Aaron Paul slams on the brakes and he stops right in front of him before hitting him. And I'm like, the amount of space between the car and Dino, there's no way he would have stopped without hitting him.
See, I actually liked that because I think there was even an episode of Mythbusters where they were doing like movie and TV myths, and they did the whole like myth on braking power and like what you actually need. And I think they also did it on the show Top Gear.
Oh, Top Gear.
Where they actually were testing it, and actually the braking power, a lot of these like sports vehicles are way more ridiculous than you would ever give them credit for.
Really?
Yes. Especially because they're so lightweight. A lot of these cars aren't heavy.
It just blows my mind.
So, like, I will say there are some scenes that do seem like they're not real, and they aren't as fast as they say they are. But that's my stipulation for it. Yes, he probably wouldn't have stopped in that time at 230 miles an hour, but he was only going 130 miles an hour.
Okay.
So, you are right, because he didn't do it at that speed that was shown on the speedometer. And I think that's where the disconnect is, and that's where it feels a little weird.
Yeah.
Is filming it at like half speed. I think they should have shown it at double speed almost for some of the scenes.
I guess that makes sense. It makes sense. It works out. Well, how do you feel about this movie and like our scores for it?
This is actually probably my favorite video game adaptation movie that has ever existed.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
This, for me, is so unique in that it actually tried to be exactly what this movie, like the game is and the movie is. Like, I feel like they really did the research on what they wanted the story with. And no, they didn't do any exact story from any of the games, but that's what I liked about it. It felt like it belonged in the world, and it felt like they could make a game of this movie, and it would work. Like, this could very easily be a story game.
Yeah, I mean, it's also, you'd make a game out of it and it would be Need for Speed. I've never seen those games of having much of a story, and whatever little story they do have, I don't see it as anything groundbreaking, so I feel like it's not hard to make a racing game, if that makes sense.
Well, to the same effect, it's not hard to make a racing movie.
Yeah, like, this is discount Fast and Furious. Anyway.
I mean, I definitely agree in some aspects, but I feel like this is a little bit more realistic than some of the things in Fast and the Furious. But Fast
100%.
and the Furious also has a lot of ridiculous practical effects, which I think is why that movie does as well as it does. And these are the only two like car racing movies I know that have as much practical effects as they do.
Well, people love seeing the insane, vehicle stunts that people do in these movies.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's a huge draw to the theater for these movies. So, I mean, I understand why people enjoy it a lot. And, I mean, I enjoyed it. It was a fun movie. But what score would you give this movie?
So, for me, I actually gave this movie... I think I actually changed it from what I originally had. Let me pull that up because I'm terrible. We did do the audience scores. Let's see, what was... Mine was an 83%.
83. Okay, wow, that's quite a bit higher than the audience.
Yeah, I loved it, which I will say it again, just in case we didn't say it. Audience score was 57, critic score was 22.
Yes, I do believe we said it. I was blanking for a second.
It's okay. We all blank. My brain's blank. My head is blank. What do you give this movie?
I'll give this movie... I think I feel with the audience. I'm going to give it same score, 57% with
Fair
the
enough.
audience. I mean, because this movie was cool. I really enjoyed the impressive practical stunts and the racing, and it was really fun, but there were a lot of points in the movie that just fell flat for me, and I feel like I say that quite a bit with movies like this, but it's how I felt.
It's fair. Your feelings are your feelings, man. You got to feel them.
Before we move on to the spoiler sections, next week's movie.
Yes. which is another racing movie.
Yep, another racing movie. This is one of my good picks, and that's going to be Baby Driver.
Yes.
And I'm very excited to talk about that movie. I think it is a great film.
It is a great film, which definitely watch that along with us. That one, I know a lot of people are probably not going to want to watch it because of the main actor. We're going to say this right now. I feel like this is something we both agree on. Tell me if I'm wrong. But we are people who separate art from the artist.
Yeah.
I can enjoy a movie even if someone bad's in it. And just because there's one person in a movie, maybe it is the main actor that is a horrible piece of shit person, that does not matter to me, because even if you say you don't want to support that one person, you're also not supporting the hundreds of people that worked on this movie.
Yeah,
that are
deserve
completely
credit.
innocent and worked their entire life to do these movies and to do the things that they do. And I don't like shitting on everyone's life just because of one asshole.
Yeah.
So I think it goes to show that, because there's a lot of stuff that happened with the main character in Baby Driver. I won't get into.
We will get in. We might talk about that next time. But next week, join us for Baby Driver.
Yes.
Now on to the spoilers.
Yes. So, and what are some of your favorite parts of this movie?
Some of my favorite parts, like I said, I enjoyed the racing stunts and all the practical stuff. It was really cool. A lot of it also had to deal with the cast. The cast looked like they were having a lot of fun. They were really great. I especially loved the chemistry between Aaron Paul and Imogen Poots.
Yes.
They were really awkward at first, and there's one scene of Imogen that always kind of makes that it made me laugh, and that's when she's talking about the engine of the Shelby GT.
Yeah.
And everything she says about the engine is actually stamped on the real life engine of that car. So it's it makes her look really smart in the movie that she knows a lot about cars, but honestly it makes me laugh because it's stamped right there on the side of the engine, so she could have been just reading it.
Even reading it like that, I stumble sometimes when reading some of these things.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, for sure, definitely. I mean,
no, but I get what you mean. It is a really funny thing. One of the things that I love with their chemistry, one of my favorite moments, is the moment when they're dangling from the helicopter. And she's scared of heights, and he can tell that she's scared of heights. And he's trying to get her mind off it. He's like, look into my eyes! Look into my eyes! Look how blue they are! They're much bluer than yours. No! Mine are bluer! And they're just arguing about whose eyes are bluer. But the way they do it, it's dynamic, it's hilarious. It's really like this fun moment where they're just like, he's getting to her in a way that would get to her. Well,
I love how he pushes it even further in that scene where, Benny is flying the helicopter that's carrying them, and he just goes, "Don't drop us, Benny." And she's like, "Wait, what?"
Yeah.
No, of course, please don't drop us. She's just terrified.
He's like, I'm joking. She's like, which, yeah, seriously, Imogen Poots is such an amazing actress. Same with Aaron Paul. Like, some of the acting in this movie is actually a lot of what carries this movie. Mm-hmm. Like, the storyline, obviously, like I said, it's cheesy. It's very video game story. So take that as it is. And that's why I think I can give it a high score, is I take that as what it is. And they were trying to do that. They're trying to make a bad story feel good.
And that kind of goes on with another highlight of mine is the trip. The whole long trip race in the middle of the movie where they're trying to get to the destination of the final race. I found that trip more interesting than the end race itself. The end race in comparison was so boring to me compared to the travel time they spent throughout the movie. And I think that's because it just had more character and it felt more earned.
Well, and I feel like there's just so much more action and so much more drama throughout the middle of the movie than the end.
And then the end is just it's a car stunt scene. It's a race.
And one of the things that's kind of funny about that is, like, when you think about that, like when you're going through a video game, especially with one that's that has maybe some like good things at the beginning and like a good story in the middle that really captures you, and you're like going through and you're like, oh, what's gonna happen? But when you get to that last race, I'm going to be the winner.
You hope. If you don't suck at the game.
Well, even if you aren't, like in the game, you're going to restart until you win. So this to me is that perfect run through the game. And this to me is that I think that's what happens at this, is it kind of just ends the way a video game would, where it ends with that same impact of, okay, it's done.
Well, it even has the cheesy end game shots of the aerial view kind of just zooming out from the character, and it has that dramatic music pulling away.
Yeah, one of the things I thought was really hilarious in this movie, while they're inside of the mechanic shop that Aaron Paul character owns, they're playing Need for Speed Pro Street.
I knew they were playing one of the games. I couldn't tell which one it was.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Need for Speed Pro Street.
That's hilarious.
I think it was about the same time that game was still pretty popular. It's actually one of the first games that really got into hardcore tuning of vehicles, which it's a tuning shop. So I laughed really hard that they were playing the tuning Need for Speed game in the tuning shop. And all of them are mechanics that tune vehicles for high-end vehicles.
See, I think it's funny whenever they pull elements out of the video games and put it in the movies. Like I mean, that's like an Easter egg of, what game they were playing. But whenever they're doing the races throughout this movie, they always have this, like, aerial map on, like, a little computer screen, and it looks like those maps during the loading screens of, like, the Need for Speed games. It shows the start and ending dot, and then there's, like, a yellow glowing line between that shows the track of the race, and it's just so funny to me, where I'm like, haha, that's from the game.
Which, yeah, it's so true. It totally does that, which, again, I love those things. I loved one of my, like, the funniest scenes. This movie's got a lot of comedy, by the way.
Yes.
Especially with Rami Malek's character. He is so fucking funny. And one of my favorite scenes of this movie is when they're getting the group back together after Aaron Paul was in jail, and they go find Rami Malek's character, who's working in this, like, giant office building.
He's doing a desk cubicle job.
And they're trying to get his attention, and they say they're going to be racing with the Shelby Mustang, which we didn't really talk about yet, but we will. But they'll finally get his attention. He's going to quit his job, and he wants to quit in a way, well, he'll never come back to the job. So what does he start doing? He starts stripping off his clothes
as he's walking out the building.
And he stops by this one girl he had a crush on, and he kisses her, and he's like, I always wanted to do that. And then he strips completely naked and gets into the elevator with this girl. And I love this scene so much because he starts just like, she like looks at him and she's like looking him up and down, and he's like, it's a little cold in here.
Yeah.
And he's like, what do you do? And she's like,
I work in accounting.
He's like, that sucks, doesn't it? She's like, it kind of does. Yeah.
Okay, well, bye.
And then he meets up with his friend, and he's like, hey, you missed this?
See, I thought that scene was funny, but that also leads into a downfall for me, is they went to go pick up Finn for the sole purpose of helping fix the Shelby GT, because it was pulling a little to the left when they would turn or whatever.
Yeah.
Like he was being picked up, one, because he's a teammate, but they needed his help fixing the car. And then what happens? He does nothing for the rest of the movie except add support. There's one point where he fills the car with gas while they're driving on the highway, and it's a really cool stunt scene. But other than that, he actually doesn't do what they originally brought him back to do.
Which I kind of, there's only one part of the movie where we actually see them tinkering a little bit, but I almost thought, I was wondering if they were trying to do that because in like the game, when you take your car to a shop, you never actually see them work on it. It usually just like fades, you spend the money, and then you have your car back.
Well, that's one of the other things I just did not like about this movie, is it felt rushed and it would skip things, I guess, like in a game. But there's a part in the beginning, they're supposed to build up this Shelby GT 500, and it never shows them working on it. They pull the blanket off of it, and it's like it has no shell. It's just they need to work on it, do a lot of work. And then suddenly it skips to the next scene, and the car is fixed, and it's on the show floor. And it's like, but I wanted to see the car being worked on.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there is that. For me, like, I guess I didn't really care if they spent 5 minutes of the movie showing us working on the car. Like, maybe it would have helped a little bit for like pacing and stuff. But that unveiling of the Shelby is so cool.
Oh, it's a beautiful car.
Yeah.
But I was like, why'd you skip that? And I felt the same way about when Aaron Paul goes to jail, it skips over his jail time. It talks about some of the things, and I'm fine with it going through it quickly, but it would have been cool seeing him do something in the jail. But he does. It's like, oh, he's in jail, and then suddenly it cuts and it says like
2 years later.
Yeah, like 78 or what? 78 days or 2 years. I don't know how long he was in there, but
I think it was 2 years that he was in jail because it was involuntary manslaughter.
Yeah, it just skips over it, and I think it would have been cool to see at least a couple days worth of him in the jail or one scene.
Yeah, which we both had talked earlier about it, but we both love the Cohen Segs in this movie.
Yeah.
Like all the cars in this movie especially. But
the Cohen Segs.
That's like one of my all-time, like if I had all the money in the world, I would buy a Cohen Seg. Like that is my ultimate, like way too bougie expense dream car.
It's such a cool car, and it boasts being able to go like 270 miles an hour or something. Like,
it actually is ridiculous. It's got something like that. I think it's 0 to 60 in like 2.6 seconds or something like that.
Insane.
Which there's the other cars in this movie. We have like a Bugatti. It's a $1.3 million Bugatti in this movie. We have a Lamborghini Elemento. That's the one. And we have that Shelby Mustang, which was the last Shelby that Ford and Carroll Shelby worked on together.
Yeah, the first one showcased in the movie is the 2013 Shelby GT 500. And then at the end of the movie, he gets a different Shelby GT, and it's based off of the 2015 prototype.
Yeah. Which I was kind of laughing, like talking about like some of the speeds of the vehicles. Like he's racing in the Cohen Seg at the end, which goes like we said, like 260, 270 miles an hour. Mm-hmm. The Lamborghini Elemento that Dino drives only has a top speed of 221.
He should have easily been able to pass him.
Which there was a lot of windy roads and stuff, so we probably wasn't hitting top speeds.
Oh, absolutely.
So that's probably where it was still close, but I feel like in the acceleration time on the Lamborghini actually has a 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds.
Well, one of the racing moments that did not make sense to me at all is they're driving the Shelby and that originally boasted it was 234 was his top speed he hit in that. Yeah. And they're going by this giant cliffside, and then suddenly out of nowhere they have like some trucks, a truck and like a Hummer.
Yep.
And they're keeping up with this Mustang fairly easily, and I'm like, what is this garbage? It just that chase scene did not make sense to me. Like, how is this even possible?
Yeah.
I mean, the scene ends really cool because it's that, you know, they fly off the cliff after being hooked up to the helicopter, so they escape, and it's a cool stunt. But the race itself, I'm like, what the heck? It's so dumb.
Speaking of like the planes and stuff in this movie, Kid Cudi plays the character Benny, and Benny plays one of the things that I find really awesome about this movie. He's always flying in a plane, giving them aerial views, telling them when traffic is coming, telling them when there's like people on the road, telling them when to turn, like helping them out any way he can, and he saves them. We find out later in the movie that he's actually like a sergeant in the military, in the Air Force, and he actually flies Apache helicopters because no one believed him, so they always called him Liar One.
Yeah, and he actually throughout the movie he says, "Call me Maverick." It's so funny.
Which one of my favorite lines with that actually is at one point he's like, "Call me Maverick, or I will kamikaze this plane right into your nutsack."
And I mean, it makes sense that, you know, being a sergeant or whatever in the military, he's able to have access to this. But I was like, how does he have access to so many? He has a superpower that whatever flying vehicle they need, he has it. He goes news helicopter to a SWAT helicopter to his little, you know, crop duster plane, and then he goes to another, you know, army helicopter.
Yeah, which he said the news one and the other one were friends of his. Which, being a pilot, you probably have pilot friends, and most of the time he's in his personal plane. And then he does get in a lot of trouble and puts in jail for taking the military plane.
Yeah, he does get in trouble for that. But I just thought it was...
Yeah. No,
it was
I
a little
get it.
too crazy that he just has access to any flying vehicle he needs.
Yeah, it's one of those plot devices where the character just gets whatever he needs. It's fair. It's a fair judgment. I'm not going to deny it.
Well, he does it so quickly. Like,
yeah.
When they're doing that truck chase scene, and he shows up on a dime with that army helicopter, and I'm like, how how?
Yeah, that does seem like really Deus Ex Machina trope. Like, just yep. Like, okay. One of the things, like that first scene where he's in the Shelby after the jail time and he's doing all the crazy racing, trying to scare the hell out of Imogen Poots in the car. I love the 2-lane grasshopper.
Oh, when he jumps over the hill there.
Yes, which that actually is a pursuit breaker in a lot of the Need for Speed games. So in the Need for Speed games, when you're getting chased by the police, one of the things that they have a lot is they have this thing where you can either like hit something and something will fall on the police, or you can do these crazy jumps to get away from the police. So I love that they actually paid homage to it by doing a 2-lane hop over the road, which it is ridiculous, but it is so cool.
Oh, it's a really cool stunt, but that's one of the things I found a little, very frustrating about the movie. is so the point of the movie is Aaron Paul, after getting out of jail, wants to get revenge, but also prove his innocence.
Yes.
And what does he do to prove his innocence? He races like a maniac across the country and blatantly... Outside of his parole, and blatantly attacks and provokes police officers, and probably even kills some people and police officers because he causes multiple traffic accidents, and he is constantly trying to make police crash and blow up.
Yep.
And I'm like, but in the end, he proves his innocence, and it makes no sense. It's like, yeah, you proved your innocence by breaking all these laws and actually committing murder on other people.
It's one of those things in a lot of video games, like, and Scott's really kind of brought this to my attention in a lot of video games, and I know he brought it in a really controversial way in the Last of Us episode, but when you actually sit down and think about sometimes what the main characters do in some of these games and the things that they cause in these games, they just happen. Like, you just end up killing a lot of people just to get the thing that you wanted, and it does just happen, which is, again, I'm like, it's one of those things where it's like, I want to hate it for the movie, but I want to love it because it's exactly the way it is in the games.
Yeah, I guess, but it was too much. Like, you're trying to prove you're innocent by killing other people.
Yeah, which, I mean, he does go to jail again.
Yeah, so it's that one. He goes to jail again,
6 months.
But it's only for 6 months or whatever.
One of the other lines I absolutely love in this movie, which I love Michael Keaton in this movie.
Oh yeah,
his
great.
Character is so awesome, and how enthusiastic he gets, and you can just tell like he's just a car lover.
Oh, you can tell he had fun with the role.
Oh yeah. But one of the things I love that he says is there's this scene where Toby is driving around like all crazy, and he's like, "Marcia balls have been located, and they are extraordinarily large." And I'm like, yes, because it's true. Like, Toby in this movie, he's like the ballsiest driver ever, and he is so good at driving, and it's, I don't know,
it's absolutely insane. I only had one other downfall for the movie, in that I think it was too long.
The movie does feel long at parts, especially like it kind of gets that third act slow point. Kind of like where in We Are Your Friends. There's that moment where it's just like, can we get to the last thing now? I
think this movie could definitely shave a half hour off of it, and it would not even change the story.
Half hour?
I'd
so
say
much.
I'd put it down to an hour 45. I think 2 hours and 12 minutes is too long for this movie. There are some movies that I love that are just absolutely long.
Well, and it sounded like you wanted to add some stuff to it, like showing the actual, like, maybe you wanted 2 hours of different things.
Maybe.
Because you were talking about adding, like, the actual, like, showing them working on the car and stuff.
Well, because they're supposed to be these great mechanics, and then you never see them doing anything to these cars.
Oh, one click attention to the right? No, 2, 3, no, 1. 1. Which one is it? 1. That's the only thing.
The only scene you see them working on a car, and it's like, I don't know.
One of my downfalls in this movie is just how shitty of a person Anita is. Dakota Johnson's character.
Oh, she's horrible.
Oh my god. She never once... So, yeah, her and Toby were exes, and at the beginning of the movie, Anita's brother gets killed by Dino in a car race with all three of them. And they were racing for... Toby was going to get all the money they made on the car, which I think was like $3 million or something like that, or like $2.8 million or something like that.
Yeah.
When he was originally only going to get $500,000. And so they're racing for all of the money, and they have 3, which the fact that he had 3 Koenigsegg's was
insane.
An illegal American car was a little ridiculous, but it's also, like I said, it would just happen like that.
Well, what frustrates me about Dino killing Pete in the movie is he just has this stupid pride, and he has that thing that a lot of killers do. They keep trophies after they kill.
Yeah.
And you'd think the car he kills him with, he would get rid of and throw away or something. But nope, he goes and hides it in a little shed in like a junkyard.
Yep.
And he didn't even try to like paint over the mark from causing the accident that killed Pete. Like,
I know he didn't think that Anita would probably ever look at his computer for it.
No one will ever find out.
Him having all of the stuff with passwords that she knows instantly.
Oh, and yeah, not even on top of hiding the car in the shed in the junkyard. On his computer, he has like professional grade photos of the damage on the car that incriminates him, and it's just why.
And here's my dumb part of the movie. Anita at that point doesn't call the police. I have proof my brother was killed and my ex was telling the truth.
Nope. Instead, she lets her still current boyfriend Dino put a mark out on Toby to be killed by other people and get hunted down, and then she suddenly meets Toby somewhere to give him the information that where to find the car
and to give him her wedding ring.
Yeah, to give her the ring back that Dino gave
Which
her.
I did like him coming up to his car, in the car.
Oh yeah, Toby.
And he knocks on the window with the ring.
Yep.
And then he's like, "Oh, this is for you, by the way." And he chucks the ring at his chest, and he's like, "Ah."
It's a great moment.
Well, I just lost my wife, and I'm going to jail after this race.
Yeah, you can see the oh shit face. He's like, holy crap, when Aaron Paul shows up in the Koenigsegg that has the damage on it.
Yeah. So, like, there is a lot in this movie, like I said, that is cheesy, but I think it's the kind of cheesy that works for what they were trying to do. And especially if that's what they said they were trying to do, then I'm like, I get it. I love it. That's exactly what it is.
Absolutely. It's hilarious, but I don't know. It was a little over the top.
Is there anything else you want to talk about with the movie?
Nope, that's it. I feel like it was a fun movie, and I enjoyed a lot of great parts like the trip in the middle, but it was just a middle of the road movie. It's definitely a decent video game movie.
Yeah.
Compared to especially some of the ones we're going to talk about in the future.
Yeah.
Stay tuned. But it's a middle of the road movie.
Yes, which we are going to be doing one video game movie a month on top of the other movies we're doing. So we're going to be having 5 episodes a month for you guys.
Yep, so stay tuned for all the fun.
Lots of movies for us to watch.
Yep.
Which, yes, we will keep you guys posted on what we're going to be watching. If you have any ideas or anything that you guys want us to watch, definitely send us a message. Find us on Instagram. You can either find us separately, or David's going to be starting an Instagram for us.
Yes, I will be making some social media pages for this channel very shortly. So please look us up at New Nostalgic Movie Reviews, and give us some comments and
give us some
let
ratings
us know,
and reviews.
Yeah, tell us what you think about the movies, and then what you want us to see watch in the future.
Give us 5 stars because you love us, and we're worth it. I think, maybe, hopefully.
Please give us some love. But with that, we are signing off, and we will see you next time.